A seated young woman is shown from her right side. The arm of her golden chair and an embroidered cushion echo the shape of her right leg as it presses through her heavy blue cloak. Her hands are pressed together as though in prayer, and she gazes downward, her red underdress just visible above the cuffs of her cloak. Before her are three golden-haired figures. Closest to viewers, with wings unfurled, a young, smiling angel turns to look at us while hoisting an infant above his opposite shoulder. This chubby baby, who reaches toward the seated woman and places one hand on her shoulder, is further supported by a second youth. We are given only a glimpse of this third figure, the bottom half of his face and the barest tips of his fingers. Painted by the Italian artist Filippo Lippi around 1465, we are looking at the Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus Christ, the Christian Savior, shown before her supported by angels. While barely visible halos mark these two figures as sacred, other aspects of this work seem directly drawn from viewers' lived experiences. Lippi's image is at the complex intersection of art, religion, and life. This is an example of a popular image type in European art of the 15th and 16th centuries, a period known as the Renaissance. While we don't know the original location of this image, based on its modest scale and its subject, we can assume it was likely for a private home, where the image would remind Christians of their faith and help to guide their prayers. What exactly did this image remind viewers of? First and foremost, something called the Incarnation, or the idea that Jesus Christ was the divine Son of God, but was also a human being, a miracle at the center of the Christian faith. If Jesus had a mother and was a baby, then he was human. Notice how mother and child share the same golden hair and creamy skin. See how the grouping of Christ and the two angels are just behind Mary's right leg, as though pressing towards her body. Looking at this image would remind viewers of Christ's humanity and encourage a sense of protective love for this precious baby who would go on to suffer and die for humankind. While they are physically close, there is a psychological or mental distance between mother and son. Mary appears deep in thought, engaging in prayer, but not actually engaging with or looking directly at her son. Jesus is the active figure here, gesturing towards his mother and reminding us of his central importance. Perhaps she is thinking about her role in the Incarnation, or about the future death of her precious boy. He is certainly reminding us of his connection to her, with his outstretched hand perfectly aligned with hers folded in prayer. In a private home, this image of a lovely young mother and her plump, healthy baby boy would have also served as an ideal model for the household. Women might look to the Virgin Mary's loving model of motherhood, while any family would hope for their own healthy male children who might continue the family line. And what about that landscape extending behind the figures? Lippi uses a system known as linear perspective to construct a sense of deep three-dimensional space. We see the ocean, vegetation, distant buildings, and just above Jesus' head, a rocky outcropping. For Christian viewers, this was a form of foreshadowing. The stones recall the rocky tomb that Christ was placed in after his crucifixion. This perfect infant was born to die. As I mentioned, we do not know where this work was originally displayed or for whom it was made. What we do know is that whoever originally owned it had good taste and knew it was on trend in art. Notice how Lippi's figure group appears to be framed by a stone window. This is similar to sculpted works by artists like Donatello, who pioneered this type of carved private devotional image in the early 15th century. Lippi's painted version is a less heavy and less expensive take on this object type. Less expensive, however, does not mean less elegant or less beautiful. Mary's golden hair, fair skin, and even features were the ideal of female beauty, while the rich fabric of her dress and numerous pearls adorning her hair and body were precious commodities. The swirling folds of her delicate headdress continue the graceful lines playing across the image, from the figure's hair and dress to the sweeping landscape beyond. So far, we've been considering the subject matter of this painting, what we call iconography. Now let's think about the way this subject matter is depicted, what we call the form of the image. People often note the increased realism of Renaissance art, or the idea that artists of this time tried to replicate the experience of seeing things in the real world in their art. And it is true that in this work, reality effects abound. Lippi's mathematical precision in depicting the deep space of the landscape, his great care in depicting Jesus' naturalistic anatomy, his use of light and shade to model his figures so that they look three-dimensional, all of these effects replicate aspects of reality. But to insist upon Renaissance artists as trying to directly replicate the world as we see it kind of misses the point. It's a superficial or a limited way of understanding the accomplishment of creators like Lippi. In truth, what is more artificial than a world of utter perfection, composed of flawless figures and graceful lines? A world in which the humble Jewish girl who gave birth to Jesus Christ is shown as an elegant contemporary lady, decked out in finery and seated in a golden chair. It's not so much lived reality that artists like Filippo Lippi sought to replicate, but the realm of the ideal. We must remember that these are more than images of supposedly flesh and blood figures. We are gazing upon sacred beings whose beauty and elegance is meant to transcend, to move us beyond the earthly towards the ideal, towards the divine. Lippi did not seek to merely replicate the world he saw so that viewers could better relate to his figures, useful as this was to remind them of their faith. He and other artists of his time wanted to master the principles of nature, to show through their art that they understood the underlying structure of the universe.